All right, we could see a top 8 here for Eli Kassis if he manages to win this round. Let's find out what happens. It's time for round number 14. Cedric, Corey, take it away.
Will do, Maria and Frank. Thank you both so much. Cedric Phillips, Corey Baumeister. We are here in the booth for an Eli Kassis winning in. MTG Dad looking to add a little more to the old resume here, Corey.
Absolutely. I'm sure plenty of people have said Eli Kassis winning in, but I'm sure that doesn't get any less special when you get to keep playing in these events. This is going to be a really exciting match.
It very much should be. On one side of things, of course, we do have Ken Yukuhiro, who is also very familiar with winning ins, given his storied career over the past handful of years. Ken not in win in territory just yet, but a win here would get him there for next round. But we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves just yet. We're going to turn our attention to a very interesting matchup here in Mardu Energy against Bant Nadu. As Frank did mention at the news desk, the big bad of the format is Bant Nadu, is performing incredibly well. These energy decks, maybe not excuse me, what people were expecting coming into the weekend, but they are performing a little bit better than even I expected, Corey.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe not amazing in this particular matchup. We've seen, at least on camera with the matches that we've been covering, that Nadu has done quite well, but you know, Ken's still here plugging away, so still doing plenty fine in this matchup.
We are underway here as a galvanic discharge took care of a delighted halfling. Eli is going to search up a hollowed fountain now off of a fetch land. While Ken, you can see his hand, there's an Amped Raptor, a Thonian Nightmare, and a Johnny Nakatl Pariah. That's not
Tongue twister.
That's not that hard to say.
You had Slick Shot Show Off down.
I know.
You got the easier one here.
Not that hard to say. Here's an easy one to say. Spring Heart Nantuko.
There we go.
We've been seeing it plenty here this weekend, and we will continue to do so. It is piece one of the very unique puzzle that is Bant Nadu.
Yep, absolutely. And from Ken has kind of the dream start here of accruing at least one energy on turn one and then playing Amped Raptor to be able to make sure to cast anything that Ken could kind of cascade into from the powerful 2-1.
A Blood Crypt enters the battlefield here for Yukuhiro, and now it'll be an Amped Raptor, so a little energy into a Thoughtseize, targeting Kassis. And that's the reason that we see Mardu as opposed to Boros. Thoughtseize is a key card in this format that is so combo-laden, and Yukuhiro is not thrilled with what he sees, as there's 2 copies of Nadu, and one could actually argue 3 with the copy of Court of Calling.
Yep, makes a lot of sense. And there are a couple other black cards in Ken's list. We saw this a little bit earlier on the feature match, but might have been a little bit more happy, especially with what Ken saw in hand here from Eli Kassis, to find Orcish Bowmaster to clear up the creature on Eli's side.
Well, Kassis, it's not an untapped land, but it is a land nonetheless, so that'll generate a token off of the Nantuko, and the Surveil is going to keep the card on top here, potentially, for Kassis. It's left it on top, at least for right now. We'll see if that changes. It will not. We're going to head back Ken's way, who's got 2 copies of Marsh Flats, an Arena of Glory, a Thonian Nightmare, and a Johnny, Nakatl Pariah, and now a Ragavan, Nimble Pilferer.
Looks great as it looks so far here in this particular spot. Just not what it used to be. All tons of creatures, of 1/1 creatures across the way. Grazers, Tamios at 0-3s, all these things that kind of brick walled the once powerful slash unbeatable Ragavan.
Yeah, the Monkey Pirate has had a tough tournament, to be sure, especially in this matchup. It has a very hard time getting through or hitting anything relevant. So we'll see if Ragavan does join the party here for Ken. For now, it will be a copy of a Johnny. Now there is the Ragavan, so plenty of power added to the battlefield as Ken starts to go a little bit wide. Eli kept this card on top, so let's see. It's going to be a Nadu. We don't get a good look at exactly what card Eli did draw. We already knew about the Nadu, of course, and he's just going to pass the turn back. Wouldn't be surprised if it's something perhaps equipment related.
Yeah, either Shuko or maybe Court of Calling, Summoner's Pact, to try to get the other piece of the combo when you don't have Shuko, Outrider, and Core. But looks like it might have just been another Nadu.
Yeah, perhaps that may be the case. We see here for Ken, going to line up where the blockers will be, which means attacking may not be particularly profitable.
Just really shows how powerful Nadu is if you're like, yep, it's a legend, but Ken has to deal with it and can't really easily attack into it. So you know Eli Kassis is going to get a little bit of value regardless if Ken's able to deal with it.
Ken's hand right now is very land heavy with those flats in that theater. So the struggle is somewhat real. And one thing you can also tell is here comes Ragavan and the cat token. But one thing you can certainly tell here, Corey, is that one Thoughtseize is simply not enough against this deck. It's too redundant.
Yep, 100%. Everything kind of circles around to get every single piece. So yeah, Thoughtseize is probably a card we'll see taken out here for the post-board games from Ken. And this attack here from Ken, usually it just kind of looks like, yeah, that Ragavan, of course, was going to die. Why would you do that? But you have the Chthonian Nightmare to get some free value and get it back. And then plus, if the cat were to die, you would get to transform that Ajani.
And now we will have a transformation on this Ajani now. So time to get busy with a little bit of planeswalking. And we'll see here what may come next for Ken, if there's anything else to do on this particular turn.
Yeah, being able to make a cat, and you see Ken is kind of struggling with where do you aim that damage because, well, everything gets a Nadu trigger from Eli Kassis' side, so it feels really brutal to aim it at a creature, but, you know, you do got to deal with them at some point. Now Eli Kassis will get a trigger off Nadu.
You see a little bit of a question to the judge there, so there is the Nadu trigger. That'll be an Otawara that will enter the battlefield untapped, and that, of course, will trigger the Nantuko, so another creature is made, and down goes the Nantuko. So that problem is solved, at least for now, here for Ken Yukuhiro.
Yep, that stops the powerful combo of just truly winning the game if you find Shuko, but even having Nadu and two other creatures, if you find Shuko, you're looking at the top 6 cards to be able to piece together something else powerful. Wouldn't be too shocked if the game ends if we find the now most powerful 1-mana equipment here in Modern.
Kassis will draw. Didn't get a great look at it just yet here from Eli. We got to know there's a couple copies of Nadu, and now appears to be another copy of Spring Heart Nantuko. Nadu was thinking about getting into the red zone, may still be considering it, perhaps to take care of the Ajani, or at least attempt to do so. Instead, it looks like it's going to be a Bestow. So Bestow onto the Insect, that'll trigger the Nadu, of course. And now Eli is just making sure exactly how this will go, which means the land does enter the battlefield here.
Yeah, Eli just seeing if he gets the trigger off that to get another token. Does not, since it's on the stack, but that is a fetch land, so Eli does have the ability to get another blocker if need be.
So not a little bad exchange there for Kassis. Yukuhiro does have some work to do here. We have seen this matchup a couple of times here this week, and most of the time it was Boros energy as opposed to Mardu, but energy all the same. And the result consistently has been the same here, Corey. These energy decks very much struggling with the 3-4 bird.
Yeah, really struggling against the bird and just struggling against a lot of the things that this Bant Nadu deck is doing. Probably not the matchup Ken wants this deep in the tournament, but definitely nothing like an 80-20 matchup, nothing like that. Modern is so close these days that if anything, if it's a bad matchup, usually around 60-40.
An elegant Parlor is the land for the turn. Now, we see the Nightmare once again. This kind of interesting, unique take on recurring Nightmare is what you're seeing here in this energy-based card.
Ah, okay. I'm getting the joke now. That's one that didn't click right away.
That one went right over, huh?
It sure did.
Okay, all right.
That's the joys of MH3. There's all these little jokes going on with the cards that you get to learn as it goes.
Right over the old fro. I see. Well, see, do you get it now?
I do get it now, because it's recurring.
There you go.
Ah,
there you
okay.
go.
All right.
Starting to put the
I'm
pieces
with
together. And now the Ajani will transform. Use some of this energy here.
And kind of going off with this enchantment right here. This is looking really good. Not a card I was really expecting to see in Constructed.
that how that works? Both the Johnnies give it?
Yeah, because the leaf flipping trigger is from activating the ability from the Nightmare, and then the second Johnny doesn't show up until the ability resolves later on.
Got it. Cool.
Okay.
Yep.
Good, clear communication there from our judge in the feature match area, explaining exactly how this Johnny plus Nightmare situation is going down. It's not favorable here for Eli, but Eli is sitting at a pretty healthy 13 life. Ken is just going pretty wide here and generating a lot of value, but the attacks aren't the best here. And it looks like Ken says, I'm going to go upstairs with the Johnny and just deal the damage over to you. So, okay, a little bit of a game plan here for Ken as Eli falls down to 8. A great time to draw Shuko if you're Kassis, but in the meantime, there is a Ragavan and an Amp Raptor coming into the red zone. Eli's going to take a moment and sacrifice a fetch land, fall down to 7, and it may be a Surveil Land or a Dryad Arbor here in this instance.
Yeah, might have to find it right now. This is quite the Splinter Twin situation with Chthonian Nightmare and 2 Ajani Nakado Pariahs, as you kind of just get to have multiple Planeswalkers activating the ability to go upstairs for Eli. So I think Ken has it all wrapped up next turn if Eli isn't able to find one of the many ways to start triggering Nadu over and over. I mean, there's all the Summoners packs, there's all the Court of Callings, there's of course the 4 Shukos to be able to more than likely just win the game on the spot.
Well, Blighted Halfling gets placed into the graveyard, and Eli's going to untap here. Shuko is the best draw right now. We'll see exactly what Kassis does put together. That top card didn't make its way onto the battlefield right away, so it's just a copy of Haywire Might. Nadu's going to take care of the Ajani, and the Might will probably come down post-combat. We'll see exactly how Eli wants to sequence things, as he is tapping for 3, so it looks like a replacement Nadu as a blocker is step number 1. Step 2 is the aforementioned Haywire Might with access to green mana here for Kassis. So let's send it back Ken's way, Corey.
Yeah, and I think if Eli could have went back to the turn where he surveilled that 3rd Nadu to the top, he probably would have not did that again. It just seemed like, you know, most of the games are Ken has to get through the Nadus. That's just not really how this game has played out with this powerful enchantment of Chthonian Nightmare. But now Haywire Might is going to be able to do a nice job of cleaning it up, but bad news for Eli Kassis here. There's another one.
Yeah, so one of the things about Chthonian Nightmare is when it does enter the battlefield, there is a trigger of giving the player 3 energies. That gives Eli the opportunity to interact with it, and that's why you saw the Haywire Might, activation. However, as you mentioned, there is a backup copy here for a Ken, so the recurring Nightmare-esque card that is being used here to great effect by Ken is going to allow Ken to sacrifice a cat token, transform a Johnny, and bring a Johnny back once again, which will yield a cat with it, and then a Johnny can make a cat once again. So Eli's going to take some more damage, Corey.
Yeah, I think we're all done here, because I think you get 5 damage here, and then you can do the Chthonian Nightmare thing once again for another 5 or 6 damage. And looks like we've kind of done it. All right, I wasn't really too hyped on these Boros energy decks because you don't really have the reach. Ken found a way to put some reach in the deck now that you kind of have to cut Lightning Bolt. I like this. This is nice.
This is a big difference. This gives you a way to win outside of combat, which these Boros energy decks that we have seen thus far have not been able to do in a meaningful way. But Ken has found a way to actually get the game over without actually having to attack, which if it was about attacking, it would be a problem, but it does not appear to be about attacking just yet. So Ken is going to get back Ragavan, sacrificing a cat. Ajani goes away. New Ajani comes to play with 3 loyalty on it, and you can see Eli is prepared to take some damage upstairs, and that is going to do it. So Ken Yukuhiro, in a very innovative way, is going to win game number 1 here over Eli Kassis. It's Mardu Energy up a game over Bant Nadu, Corey.
Yeah, leave it to Ken to put some real nice spice on an existing deck. I absolutely love Ken and all the decks that he brings to the tournament. I am a huge fan.
We are underway here in game number 2. It is a basic forest, and it is a 1-mana equipment. It's just not the one that we're used to seeing in this deck. It's actually Shadow Spear instead of Shuko.
Yeah, and I'll say Eli's hand looks pretty lackluster, really kept on the strength and the back of Sun Cleanser. That just seems like such an important card in this matchup that you really want to keep it around. But outside of that, just okay of a hand.
On the other side of things, Ken does have a pretty darn good hand. It's going to be a Thoughtseize to lead things off. Eli's going to show off that hand. It'll be 2 copies of Misty Rainforest, the aforementioned Sun Cleanser, and Endurance, and a copy of Summoner's Pact. So Ken will consult his hand and see a Ragavan, a Plains, a Guide of Souls, a Fable, the Mirror Breaker, a Mesa, and Arena of Glory. And after knowing his hand and Eli's, will select the Sun Cleanser.
Yeah, players laughing a little bit there. Eli said, target for your Thoughtseize?
That's quite the question. Quite the question.
Always an option to aim it at yourself, and there are certain modern decks that do it. It's probably only Espergorio's Vengeance, but that's about it.
We're going to head back Eli's way. A couple of lands in the grip here, as mentioned. We talk about all the time how Thoughtseize can't stop the top of the deck, and Eli's going to need a lot of help as far as the draw steps are concerned, and just going to pass the turn back for right now.
Did pick up Springheart Nantuko, which was, had the ability to be cast this turn, but didn't want to put it at risk to not get any value off of it. At least this turn, Eli's able to get one of the very powerful Surveil lands, and then next turn, cast Springheart Nantuko and get some creatures out to notably block Ragavan if it doesn't go to the skies, of course, thanks to the energy and the Guide of Souls.
Yep.
Kassis will sacrifice that Misty Rainforest and fall down to 19. As Corey did mention, it's likely that there will be a Surveil land here for Kassis that does enter the battlefield tapped, and it will be that copy of Hedge Maze. So there will be a Surveil trigger here in just a moment for Kassis as far as Yukuhiro is concerned. It's a good start with the Thoughtseize and now getting on the battlefield with that Giver and that Ragavan. So Ken currently up a game, has something good to do next turn too, Corey, with a land and a Fable and the Mirror Breaker. So I know, again, generally this energy matchup seems pretty good for Nadu, but not everybody's splashing black like Ken is.
Yeah, absolutely. And these Boros energies or Mardu energy decks look a lot better when you go 1-drop on 1, double 1-drop on 2 into a powerful 3-drop like we're going to see here from Ken with Fable the Mirror Breaker, unless Ken top decks another option here.
So the Nantuko, followed up by Misty Rainforest, is where Eli is going to start. Now he'll sacrifice that Misty Rainforest. Thought about it for just a second. Now he's going to go forward with it. Eli's draw step for the turn was a real doozy. It's actually the one-mana equipment that we're used to seeing that starts with an S on its chest. That's a Shuko, of course. So we may be seeing that here in just a moment. And we know it doesn't take much for this deck to get the job done. The Summoner's Pact is already there as well for Nadu.
Yeah, and I'm really just seeing next turn we have it all wrapped up if Ken does go for just Fable, just that as a play and nothing else. Now, you are able to cast Fable, the creature comes into play, you get some energy, but notably you'll only have 2 energy, unable to send Ragavan to the skies, so it looks like Ken needs to find some piece of interaction or to the conveyor belt, as you would say.
Yeah, we might have to get it all fired up. And Flage was the draw step. That technically is a piece of interaction. It's not the best one in this situation, but it is one nonetheless. So we'll see how Ken does want to use the Titan of Fire's Fury perhaps this turn. Knows that Eli does have access to Endurance and Summoner's Pact in hand from the turn 1 Thoughtseize. So Ken is extremely aware that he is in trouble.
Yeah, I think he might only know about Endurance. I think Summoner's Pact might have just been draw. I could be wrong on that.
You are wrong about that one.
Okay, gotcha. So yeah, then you would imagine Ken is going to really be forced to deal with that Springheart Nantuko. Aether Hub being the land to be played here is nice as it does get 3 energy. So you could send one of these creatures to the sky, notably Ragavan, so it can finally connect.
So there is Flage, and there is a trigger from the Giver, and now the trigger from the Flage will take care of the Nantuko, as you did mention. So Ken's going to gain a little bit of life as well in the exchange, of course. And now here comes Ragavan. Use the energy.
Yep.
And it will be 4 damage. So Ragavan has gotten larger. Now there will be a trigger. Just to land, nothing for Eli to be concerned with. And these players are going to confirm their life totals here real quick, and we'll allow them to explain it to us here.
No, 30, 30.
Yeah. So
20.
We can't resolve only part of the trigger. If the trigger is happening, it must all happen. So you can't just miss part of the trigger ability from the flage.
2, 4, 5 damage to self. Game 3.
Yeah, and then we've also had some guidance. There was a
Yeah, so there you go.
Yeah. So I think we're good.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, folks. Just getting that correct.
All right. We are now all good to go as far as life totals are concerned. Battlefield looks pretty clean to me as well. You saw the Ragavan trigger just hitting the Selesnya Surveil land, so nothing really done there. There's the treasure token, as you can't resolve half of Ragavan. And what do you think happens next, Corey?
You know, I think we might be taken to the skies here, Cedric. Now, there is a real risk here. If Eli does not top deck a land, you have 6 looks at being able to find a land. I think that's a line where they're plenty safe giving this a chance. Any kind of Nadu player here would probably go for it here. And we're definitely going to see Nadu begin. It's pretty fun times.
And away we shall go. So there's our fun little counter, the old 0 and the 2. That's the conveyor belt, of course. So trigger number 1, Nadu with the Shuko. And Eli's first time in the feature match here actually having to do this.
Looks like it.
Yeah, so Eli's getting a quick rundown of exactly how we do this in the feature match area. So there's number 1, Nadu to the grip. How about activation number 2 for Kassis on the Nadu? This is a Beseiju that are on the battlefield untapped. Next up on the conveyor belt is an insect token. Trigger 1, so much fun. There's a Noble Hierarch. How about trigger number 2? Eli, that's for you. That'll be a breeding pool. That'll enter the battlefield untapped. So Kassis will fall down to 12. See if this insect that's on the battlefield will be next up or not. Eli is consulting some cards in hand that we don't know about at this stage. Remember, one of them is an endurance. The other one is a mystery. This part's no surprise. There's a Nadu on trigger 1. Next up is Shuko. Okay, Corey, this isn't going that bad right now, it appears, for Ken.
Yeah, definitely still in it so far. You got a feel for Shadow Sphere as well, just hanging out so far off the screen, just like, come on, can I play?
Well, I said it wasn't going too bad, but I may have been mistaken because there was that untapped land, and now here's a Nadu that's going to take care of the old Nadu. And, of course, Corey, when this happens,
you get to reset and do it all over again. So we have 6 more looks at being able to find one of the namesake cards to kind of close it out, the Springheart Nantuko. Lots of looks at it. There's still a couple more creatures in hands that you can add to the puzzle here. Still looking great, of course, for Eli Kassis.
So the last 3 activations were an Urza Saga, a Temple Garden Untapped, and a Delighted Halfling. So this is activation number 4. This will yield the Nantuko.
Hello.
And Eli is, of course, going to cast that, so that's on the battlefield now. That'll ride the wave of Shuko. There's a 1 ring that'll be added to the grip. Next up here for activation number 2, Eli looking for lands. Shuko's not one of them. So trigger. That's a land. That'll be a Hallowed Fountain that enters the battlefield untapped. Potentially. Kassis is thinking about it, and he actually says it'll enter the battlefield tapped. So that'll yield a token, of course, and now here's the second activation on that token. So there is a fetch land, enters the battlefield, triggered the Nantuko, another token here, and now it's starting to get bad here for Ken.
Yeah, I believe that's not a token, that's a people.
Yes,
right?
yes, that's true, that's true. It is the Make a People song that's starting to crash the airwaves.
It was stuck in my head.
I know,
really
I know. You know, it's a song that's really taken the airwaves.
Yeah, it's quite catchy. I enjoyed it.
It is. I'm trying to run down Joe Hendry. That's what I'm trying to do right now. Say his name and he appears. I believe in Joe Hendry and Nadu's ability to win this game. That's for darn sure, because this is looking pretty easy breezy now. There's the Sylvan Safekeeper. Looks like Eli might be sacrificing one of these fetch lands here in just a moment. But we know from here, Corey, there's a lot of things you can do to win the game. Eli's build of this has Bristly Bill, where some people have Thassa's Oracle, and a bunch of other things. But when it looks like this, you can see Ken is just kind of resigned to his fate.
Yeah, absolutely. Just kind of hanging out, waiting for the next thing to happen. Just like we are, I'm waiting for your Spotify track of the song to release so that, I can be following you as an artist here and, get some jams going.
Time to do a little chord call in here, folks. That's what it looks like to me. And looks like that might be for 3. So let's see exactly what Eli wants to search for with the COC.
A singer and a rhymer? What can't you do, Cedric?
Play Magic well,
Okay.
since you asked.
Well, you found the perfect job right here next to me.
I sure did. I sure did. Nadi's going to come onto the battlefield, and it's going to reset everything, so plenty of activations here. So we get to run all of these creatures through the Shugo conveyor belt line one more time. Kudos to Ken, by the way, just sticking it out.
Oh, yeah.
Just a lot of respect here. Here's Notamara. That's going to enter the battlefield untapped. That, of course, will trigger the Nantuko, so another insect token. Yes, please. That's Shuko. You see, Eli's getting comfortable in the future match here. Now he's moving his stuff where it needs to be.
Exactly.
He's getting it. He's getting it now.
He's a pro.
That's right. He knows what to do.
I do like Ken kind of sticking it out. I mean, of course, Eli Kassis is someone who knows what he's doing. He's not going to kind of do this wrong, but this is a good lesson to learn when you're playing against someone. At least make your opponent do it once, you know? People got to learn how to exactly do the combo, and I always make sure that I can see my opponent establish doing the thing. Because you know what? Some people pick this deck up for the first time. You might not know exactly how to do it.
Yep. Well, I'll tell you this much. Eli ain't one of those players.
Yeah, that's
for
true.
Sure. You can see this right now as he continues to unfold. Another insect token there. Second Shugo activation here. There's a Sun Cleanser. That'll be added to the grip. One thing Ken does get the opportunity to do here, while he does wait patiently for his eventual demise, is get some information on how Eli did sideboard. So that's a reason, Corey, to sit here. So you can speak towards that a little bit in a competitive situation like this tournament is.
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to see exactly how you sideboard in an open deckless tournament, you know, some players will do this kind of shortcut. Will be like, hey, you can just see my deck. We'll move on to the third game. But that's valuable information that Ken is getting right here. Sure. And, you know, getting a little bit of camera time as well here, Cedric.
Sure. And who doesn't love that? There's Quarter Calling added to the grip.
Sure.
So there's a trigger here. Boseiju added in. Doesn't look like there's a Boseiju on the battlefield. He's going to check just to make sure. And it looks like there is one. It was hiding there. It was tapped already, so that one's going to bite the dust. New one, of course, will stay, given that it is untapped. And, of course, that will trigger the Nantuko to yield another insect. So Eli making sure that everything is looking okay.
Dice.
And it looks like a brief chit-chat.
Six
Okay,
on the right,
so
untapped.
looks like it might be a little bit easier with having a die involved. Okay, sure. So 6 of them untapped. Clean up the battlefield a little bit, make it easier for the players there. And of course, you fine folks watching at home. Sylvan Safekeeper looks like it may have just joined the battlefield. Dryad Arbor certainly did, as did that insect via the Dryad Arbor and the Nantuko. Speaking of which, Nantuko added to the grip from that Shuko activation with Nadu on the battlefield.
Can I reveal a card in my hand?
Eli wants to know if he can reveal a card in his hand. That's actually a copy of Endurance. Okay, so now Eli's going to probably explain that. Hey, I'm getting to the point now where I can start to Endurance loop. And what players are doing here, Corey, is some sacking of lands to Sylvan Safekeeper and some Endurancing them back.
Yep, absolutely. So one of the things that Eli can do when there is a blocker available, you can kind of get Bristly Bill and try to go wide, but not a lot of creatures from Eli were not in play already. So you're going to go for the kind of alternate win con here of Sylvan Safekeeper. You're able to sacrifice all of your lands, play Endurance, put all those lands on the bottom, so you can make sure to keep this going. You can end up Bosejuing all of your opponent's lands until they have no more basics. You can Otawara all their permanents back to their hand, end with a library that's filled with just lands. Say go, and Ken technically will get another turn.
That's true.
But we'll have a battlefield that Eli Kassis the next turn can just untap, draw, attack, and win the game. Head to game 3 and be 1 game away from another top 8 finish. Hear from Eli Kassis unless Ken Yukuhiro has anything to say about it.
Now, what is fun about this, from Ken, I will say, is that Ken's going to make Eli actually go through this a little bit here. And most players have conceded in this instance, so this is an opportunity for players to learn, including Ken in this instance. So we get to actually kind of see the infinite nature of this unfold. So looks like a handful of lands are going to be sacrificed here by Eli Kassis to the Sylvan Safekeeper. We might get a little vocal explanation from the MTG dad here in just a bit. But we are going to see some activations
12, 13.
of a couple of different things here from Eli.
Safekeeper. I'm going to target.
Okay.
Response target.
Yeah, okay.
Grave.
So that's a whole lot of lands in the graveyard now here for
Green and
Kassis.
white, too.
It looks like he's going to need some mana counters too. So
How many times?
we get to see
19.
the whole thing here. It looks like, folks.
Who said Storm wasn't doing well? I mean, this
that's
is the whole
true.
Storm thing, right?
That's true.
Storm count has to be through the roof right now for Eli Kassis.
And Bantstorm, not Ruby.
Pitch Wall of Roots.
Yep, okay.
All right, so Wall of Roots is gone for the alternate cast of Endurance. I'll let Eli take it away again. You can see just how easy it is to make a ton of these insects, right? So that you just win on the following turn when you get to attack. So this is why some players, Corey, this weekend have referred to Thassa's Oracle as training wheels.
Yep, absolutely. It's just not really needed anymore, and it is always terrible to just draw that card. Double blue can be a little tricky for the deck, and yeah, just not needed. Bristly Bill, even having 2 of those, I would be interested to get Eli's opinion on, as it slightly doesn't seem that needed when you're comboing off, but just a good card. I mean, we saw that in OTJ draft. Like, you ever get that one, you're slamming Bristly Bill.
Yeah, that one was a real doozy back then. Doesn't seem like it was that long ago. Technically, it wasn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, those memories never fade, because those beatdowns were pretty brutal from Bristly Bill.
And one thing I want to bring up is usually you have a lot of fetch lands in the graveyard as well. And after you put all your lands into play, you think, well, you don't have any lands to fetch for, so they don't add mana. Every one of the decks, the Bant-Nadu decks, plays 1 Yavimaya, so you can just tap that for green as well. Everything's just really perfectly crafted in the mana base to be able to combo off without Thassa's Oracle.
Ken's going to get his final pieces of information as this game does come to its natural conclusion. I think he's seen enough, and so have we. Eli Kassis is going to win game number 2 here over Ken Yukuhiro. Game number 3 is what we're bringing your way now. Again, Eli Kassis wins this game. That means he'll win the match and clinch another top 8 berth on the old resume. If Ken wins instead, he'll be 1 match away. And then round number 15 will be a very important one for both players.
Absolutely. A huge high-pressure situation for both players, but you wouldn't really be able to tell by looking at their expressions on their face. Both of them very cool, calm, collected, and have been here before.
Ether Hub is where Ken did start. Next up is that Marsh Flats. That's going to be searching up the old Sacred Foundry here for Yukuhiro. So Ken's going to fall down to 17 while Kassis waits patiently at 20 with that Misty Rainforest. The follow-up will be a copy of Giver of Souls, and we will see, Guide of Souls, and we will see exactly what Kassis wants to get with the fetch. There's only one thing I know for sure it won't be.
Yeah, it won't be a trial.
That's correct.
That's for sure.
That's
I don't know. We did see one.
I
so
know.
I'm feeling pretty good about that.
I know.
Looking at Ken's hand, I just got a glimpse there. We'll see the graphic of what is actually in hand, but I just saw a lot of reactive things. You see an Amped Raptor as the only proactive spell, and then 2 Galvanic Discharges with a Static Prison. So really looking to just destroy a lot of Eli Kassis' creatures, and hope that's good enough. Some games it is, some games it's not.
Well, we're going to head back Eli's way for his second turn of this 3rd and final game between the 2. A hand here with Endurance, Outrider on Core, Nadu Winged Wisdom, Dismember, the aforementioned Bristly Bill, and plenty of lands to make it happen. The Windswept Heath will be the play, and we're going to send it back Yukuhiro's way.
And it was an interesting choice here by Ken to not play Amped Raptor last turn, because you still have 1 energy already laying around from the Aether Hub, so you could pretty much cast anything. But I think Ken was looking for Eli to play something so that no matter what, Amped Raptor would have a good target here.
Well, Amped Raptor did find a good one there in Ragavan. And just a couple of lands, nothing of consequence there for Yukuhiro. A little bit more energy here from the Guide of Souls. I'm going to trigger a little bit of life gain too, given the Ragavan and Amped Raptor's entrance onto the battlefield. That one's harder to say.
That one is the hardest one for me so far.
Amped Raptor.
we're too amped in the booth about the Raptor to get it right.
Slick shot, show off. Another tough one. Unique, New York.
Yeah.
Unique, do.
Okay, Nadu is a stretch there.
That one,
Cedric. That's a good one.
That one's easier.
Yeah.
Okay. Dismember.
Which member?
Resolves.
Which member were you?
Yeah, it's that one. You know which one it is. That's resolving. And now Kassis is sacrificing a fetch land to go get another one of these surveil lands. Once again, it is Hedge Mage that does show up. So we'll have a trigger here in just a moment.
And Ken added Wear Tear to the hand, another way to interact in a unique way, being able to deal with Shuko here. And now it is really these 2/1 creatures and a dream here from Ken. If Eli is able to play something, like a Spring Heart Nantuko with a fetch land, able to put a bunch of blockers out, that would kind of be the ideal card right now. Looks like we don't have that available. Yeah, so pretty much anything Eli's going to play is going to get shot down here.
Yeah, for Eli, the turn's not that great. Now, it looks like it's going to be Bristle Bill. Again, a couple of copies of this card he's playing here this weekend, and Dryad Arbor is going to be the land that's the follow-up. And now the Bristly Bill is going to get a counter. So that's going to be a 3/3. The Dryad Arbor, of course, is a 1/1. And if you're Ken, look, you don't got a ton going on, but you do have some removal spells in hand. You can clear the path of these creatures, get in with that Raptor and that Ragavan. Maybe the Ragavan hits something at consequence, and you can maybe run away and steal this game.
Yeah, absolutely. That was ideal for what Ken wanted to see here, and something Eli might look back on and regret a little bit, not playing that Windswept Heath instead of the land. Or the Waterlogged Grove, of course, as this is a huge turn here for Ken.
Let's see what Ken's able to hit there. It's just a basic forest. So if you're rooting for Eli, a little bit of luck. If you're rooting for Ken, a little bit of bad luck. And we're going to head back Eli's way. Eli drawing some of the poorer cards in this situation. You know, kind of struggling to get his feet set. This is what this energy deck is looking to do. Be it Boros, be it Mardu. Get ahead a little bit on the battlefield. Use those cheap removal spells to clear the creatures. And ideally win the game before these Nadu decks can restabilize.
Yep, absolutely. Haywire Might being a nice little draw here, as if you go to kill that one, you can in response Haywire Might the Static Prison to get back a creature. Now Ken has so much removal at the ready that Ken can really just keep firing removal spells and keep connecting with these 2/1s here for a couple more turns. And 4 damage going to Eli. Putting him down to 6 puts him in that double Flage range pretty quickly here.
So the beginning of Ken's pre-combat main phase, he will pay, looks like he's going to be paying the energy to keep the Static Prison. There are some things to think about. You mentioned Flage, and that is now in Ken's hand. And Ken is going to go pretty deep in the tank for the first time in this match, because there is a ton to think about, which is how can I steal this game with a hand that was not very good. And he's in position to do it, and boy, that's an interesting play there. Not going to pay the energy, going to let the Static Prison just die. Now the follow-up is a copy of Ether Hub.
Very interesting. I absolutely love that play if you didn't already have the treasure. Now the treasure is still a target that Eli Kassis can aim that Haywire Might at. But we might actually see Ken just sacrifice that treasure, Galvanic Discharge Haywire Might after this Flage connects with the Bristly Bill. So yeah, this is a nice play from Ken.
Yeah, and Ken gave that turn a lot of thought on what to do with that Static Prison. So that decision, that's no accident. So
9.
Now for Eli, it'll be a sacrifice of the fetch land in response to the Flage. Okay, so Breeding Pool, trigger, put the counter from Bristly Bill onto the Haywire Might, making that into a 2/2.
Largely irrelevant, as it's just going to be 1 extra energy going away from Galvanic Discharge here.
22.
As Ken is up to 22 now.
Also largely irrelevant, Ken's life total.
Oh, this is interesting. Okay.
I did not expect.
So you expected to see the discharge early. Ken says, I'm saving that for maybe the namesake card of the deck, which of course is Nadu Winged Wisdom. So this gives Eli the opportunity to block here. And as you mentioned, Corey, maybe use the Haywire Might to take care of the treasure, perhaps. And Eli is starting to reach a little bit here.
Yep.
And there is the block, and now here's the sacrifice. And don't forget, when Haywire Might does die, Kassis is going to gain some life. So up to 11, it looks like for Kassis, and there goes the treasure token. And you wonder if maybe Ken missed that or not. Who knows?
Yeah, I think Ken's probably okay with that, as, he missed. He didn't get an attack in with Ragavan this turn, but he gets to maintain Galvanic Discharge for the next creature, Nadu being the important one.
We're heading back Kassis' way. Endurance, Outrider Encore, Nadu, and a Waterlogged Grove. And oh boy, this one too, a Burrington Forge Tender.
I haven't seen that one in a while.
Yeah, you and me both, partner. It's been a hot minute since we've seen that 1/1 Kithkin with protection from red, but it's on the battlefield right now, as is Nadu. And actually, Nadu, alongside the Forge Tender, is actually pretty good. Does a nice job of one-upping that discharge.
Yeah, that was incredible there. What a top deck there with the Borton Forge Tender. Now, I believe Eli does only have one, maybe two cards if it's Endurance plus a green card. Okay, doesn't have the green card, so Eli very much kind of dodged a bullet here by not having a fetch land from Ken. That would have enabled Flage to come back before Eli would be able to get rid of the graveyard. But now with Eli being able to untap, he's right back into this.
He very much is. And we know what this deck is capable of. It only takes one draw step for something like a Shuko to show up. It's going to be an Outrider on core. And this is a heck of a find here, because this works just fine alongside the Nadu. We're used to seeing, of course, the equipment, which Terror could manage pretty well, but the fact that it's a creature instead, alongside the Forge Tender, is best case scenario here for Kassis. So Ken has to respond in kind with a Galvanic Discharge, and we'll see exactly what Kassis wants to do here, which is to use the Forge Tender. Of course, the Discharge is targeting something, so that's your Nadu trigger. And now Kassis is going to take a quick read there of the Forge Tender and say, I'm going to target the Galvanic Discharge. So all Ken's going to do is get some energy here in this exchange, up to 7 energy. Discharge is going to go away. And now the Nomads and the Nadu, well, they will play. Start to put them on the conveyor belt, Corey.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ken really had to think that he was for sure going to be untapping this turn with the ability to deal with a Shuko. This was the one card that he really couldn't deal with, the Outrider and Core.
Oh, I gotcha.
So, the first one. Well, that's just a boring old land. That's not the end of the world here for Ken. How about this activation? This one? That's a Shuko. How about this one? That's a Nadu.
Okay, that does kind of end it here. Oh, okay,
There's
does have
Nurse's
one more
Saga.
land, so still gets to go it.
Yeah,
gets to go again.
And that's pretty darn huge here, because this allows Eli to hard cast a copy of Endurance, shuffle away all those cards in Ken's graveyard. So those Flages, plural, those are going to go away. And now it's time to keep it going here with the Outriders targeting the Endurance. There's a Misty Rainforest, second trigger. That's a Delighted Halfling. Looks like Eli's going to sacrifice that Misty Rainforest. We'll see what green-producing land he does want to get, but Corey, it's starting to get away from Ken here.
Yeah, I bet it's a Dryad Arbor here to get a couple more activations, and this doesn't, or just play the Delighted Halfling, that's perfectly reasonable as well. And this doesn't look like one of those turns, we'll see for now, that it's just over, but it's going to be one of those situations where Eli's going to pass and be like, well, what could you do, Ken? You know, I have this huge battlefield, I'm going to do it all over again. Next turn with Shuko or Outrider Encore. So everything coming up. Eli Kassis to make another Sunday appearance at the Pro Tour.
Yeah, it's very, very timely draws there for Kassis with the Haywire Might and the Burrington Forge Tender. Extremely, extremely good. So let's keep it rolling.
This is upkeep on Ken, as Nadu has started all over. This is the way to keep it going, and wow, this deck just looks so incredible when it's doing its thing.
And again,
it's doing its thing often.
And remember, the thing that's really important to note here is that this is not Shuko. The fact that it is exactly Outriders in core allows Eli to do exactly this, which is on your upkeep, I'm going to do the activations, right? Because if it was Shuko, you need some sort of weird lean. I think it's lean in Shikari. I can't remember. It allows you to equip an instant speed. I really do hope I'm correct about that one and that it is a Shikari. But regardless, really, really, really nice sequencing and play here from Eli. Maybe got a little bit fortunate with the draw steps, yes, but maximizing that good fortune to put himself in a winning position.
Yeah, the Borutan Forge Tender was a top 8 appearance card for Eli Kassis, one of the most incredible top decks that he could have had, and as you would expect for a card like that, that's a one of fun of in the sideboard, and a good one, I might add.
By the way, I just checked my work. It is lean in Shikari. I'm the smartest person alive. Oh my gosh, we have it? We have it? How do we have that one?
Oh, there we go.
We didn't have Stormbind yesterday, but we got the Cat Soldier today. Let's go, people in the truck. Let's go.
We need some spiders here for our references yesterday as well.
Yes. Woolly and Giant Trapdoor. That's a fatal push.
And had to attack with the Amp Raptor to just give it away here to solve, in air quotes, that problem. But meanwhile, Eli Kassis has 9 cards in hand, I think can piece together another way to do this.
Yeah, and you mentioned the spiders. That's, of course, a reference to yesterday's broadcast, a deck that Ali Rod won a Pro Tour with, and I think Ali Rod might be joining the battlefield here in Sylvan Safekeeper. So, the 1/1 that's so much fun is going to be able to protect that Outriders on core by sacrificing a useless land here. So, just a really dominant display here from Eli, and that is going to do it. Eli Kassis, hands in the air, wave them around like you just don't care. It's another top 8 for the MTG Dad.
I just love it. Eli Kassis is a good friend of mine, and he's always at the top of the standings, so seeing him get to another top 8 after I talked to him before the Pro Tour, and while he was testing Cedric, he was like, I'm just trying to not play Nadu in testing. And now he's XO with Nadu. So dang it, you had to play the deck, but it turns out it's pretty good.
You know, Eli tried so hard, and he got so far.
But in the end, it just didn't even matter because he's in the top 8.
He sure is. Congratulations to Eli Kassis. The MTG Dad does it once again. Looking for another title on the resume. Looking forward to watching him play on Sunday. But for now, I heard we're hearing from Maria and Frank right now.
Okay, friends, coming up next, we have a Hall of Famer, Shuhei Nakamura, up against Daniel Goetschel.
Shuhei Nakamura is running Jeskai control. He's gonna say no to spells with counterspell. He's gonna say no to the entire board with the powerful new Wrath of Skies. And actually there's no copy of the One Ring in his deck. Instead, he will try to draw cards at instant speed with Memory Deluge, old school. Daniel Goetschel is running 4-color Nadu, so clearly the bird is still the word. It's basically banned Nadu, but with a black splash for Orcish Bowmasters and Thoughtseize. But will it get through all the counter magic and sweepers? Let's find out.
Nakamura Goetschel is coming up after the break.
Gorgeous, gorgeous time here in Amsterdam. That's where we are. We hope you at home are loving this tournament that we are watching. Pro Tour Modern Horizons 3. We're working our way through the kind of the crucial rounds in the tournament. Day one's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But it's kind of the nitty gritty right now in front of us here, Corey.
Yeah, day one's fun. Day threes are, of course, fun. But the end of day two is always my favorite rounds of the tournament. Seeing the expression when players lock up top eights, it always gives me goosebumps. It's kind of what it's all about, you know?
We saw Eli do the old fist in the air. He's super pumped up, and we might get something like that here once again. Getting ready to watch our second match here of the round. Shuhei Nakamura is the player that we're going to turn our attention to. Of course, those 6 top finishes, a 9-2-2 record with Jeskai Control, an energy-based deck, which is trying to take care of the old big bad here in the hands of Daniel Goetschel. Now, this is a 4-color version as opposed to the 3 that we have seen so much here this weekend. Splashing for a little bit of discard, and Orcish Bowmasters, Corey.
Yeah, absolutely. There's kind of a lot of black cards here in Daniel's list. You even see some Gris, Fatal Push, Thoughtseize, Shieldred in the board. Definitely more black cards than I've seen in a Nadu deck so far, and working pretty well for him so far at a 9-3-1 record.
Yeah, one thing about this particular tournament, folks, is that players and their man bases, they can be pretty greedy nowadays.
Yes.
Now, of course, there are the old fetch lands and triomes and surveil lands and all these other things that allow for players to play whatever mana they want to in Modern. That's always been the case. I think a big takeaway for me here this weekend is anything like a Blood Moon, yeah, you don't really find that here this weekend at all.
Not really, which is kind of surprising because it does seem decent against these Bant Nadu decks. You know, they have Urza's Saga. There's got to be more Urza's Sagas in these deck lists than we've seen in a lot of Modern Pro Tours. So Blood Moon actually doesn't seem terrible to me. Kind of wild we've basically not seen it at all.
Yeah, a lot of the times 4-color decks can be a little bit risky in Modern because of Blood Moon and other style effects, Magus of the Moon, Harbinger, the new Merfolk as well. But we haven't really seen those in deck lists here this weekend, so that's why you see a 4-color deck maybe at the top of the standings here in the hands of Daniel. And you can already see the 4 colors are online, a blue-black duel and a white-green duel there in the Temple Garden.
What a time to be alive, that Temple Garden and Watery Grave working together, you know?
That's right. If that's your thing, I prefer a good, clean, basic. Thank you so much. Oh, yeah.
Oh, we're doing it.
Speaking of lands that Blood Moon destroys, I think Shuhei might be the only person in the tournament playing a Triome, but boy, do I love it. Ragaroon Triome is back.
Yeah, I think we've seen 2 of them on coverage so far, and they were both Shuhei Nakamura.
Heck yeah. Orcish Bowmasters is here on the end step there for Daniel. That's going to shoot Shuhei down to 18. And bring along the army with it.
And Orcish Bowmaster normally really good against these Jeskai control decks because most of them contain the card, the One Ring. But Shuhei decided to not play that and is playing Memory Deluge in a more tap-out style, or a more draw-go style of control deck here. So not going to be as impactful here, really only impacts Tune the Narrative.
If you are watching at home and you're a hater of Nadu, it's understandable. The card is very powerful, and that means you're probably rooting for Shuhei because Shuhei is playing a deck that's trying to stop everyone from doing anything fun. That's what Jeskai Control's game plan is here this weekend. Built their deck, did Shuhei and other Jeskai Control players to kind of combat the Bird Legend. Also be very good against decks like Ruby Storm and just decks that are trying to combo off in general. It's working for some Jeskai Control players, maybe working best here for the Hall of Famer.
Yep, absolutely. And we were on the floor kind of looking at some of the matches that weren't on camera last round, and we saw Shuhei Nakamura up against Eli Kassis, and Eli was able to win that match largely on the back of Sun Cleanser as a sideboard card here. That is not an option here for Daniel, so something that Shuhei is going to be plenty happy to see, or lack of seeing, I would imagine.
You saw a copy there of the old Discharge 3 energy, not going to take care of anything, so perhaps it's time for a Wrath of the Skies?
I would imagine.
And there it is. And this is really the key card for this strategy and why this deck, Corey, even exists.
Yeah, pretty much. Being able to have a Wrath that not only deals with all the creatures for sometimes a discounted rate than the traditional mana value that we've seen, the, 2 white, 2 colorless, Day of Judgment, Wrath of God style of effects. Being able to clean up all the artifacts, all the things equipped to other creatures, ends up being really, really powerful here in Modern.
It looks like these players are going to make sure life totals are exactly where they need to be from the Bowmaster trigger, fetch lands, and all of that jazz. But this is exactly where Shuhei would like the game to be. Nothing on Daniel's side of the battlefield right now, and hadn't gotten targeted by Thoughtseize. So had the Wrath of the Skies, and now that Thoughtseize might be a little bit too late. So you see a couple of lands there, that brand new counterspell, I think that's Inverse Polarity.
Yep. Being able to flip a coin to get some powerful things going here. And if Daniel was able to pick up a land last turn, missed a land drop, that Thoughtseize could have really changed the texture of this game. And instead, I mean, we see Shuko, we see some cards there, Court of Calling, all cards that are better when Daniel has more resources on the battlefield. As it stands right now, not amazing.
Prismatic Ending will take care of the Sylvan Safekeeper. And it looks like a Thundering Falls will be the land. Surveil a Spell Snare into the graveyard, and we're going to be heading back over Daniel's way. There's the old Nantuko and a land to follow it up. That'll yield an Insect, and now there's a Shuko, and all of a sudden, a game that was looking like it was a little bit difficult here for Daniel, well, all it takes is for a Nadu to maybe run away with this thing. That's why this deck is so darn good.
Yep, absolutely. I might have saw Wrath of the Skies, though, which will kind of punish playing that Shuko. It feels like it's just free because you got this extra mana laying around, but this is a Wrath of God effect we've never seen before at that power level to clean up artifacts as well, so Daniel might go to regret exposing that one here a little bit later down the line. But as it stands, Shuhei did not have much more gas in the tank here.
Shuhei going on the end step, sacrifice that Arid Mesa, and get himself a Sacred Foundry that does enter the battlefield tap. So the good lands to search up on the end step with a fetch land, the Triome and the Surveil lands, looks like those are all out of the deck right now. And here's the tough thing. This is a spot where you'd love to see, if you're a Jeskai control player, something like the One Ring, right?
Yeah.
To start to run away with this game. But as you mentioned, Corey, Shuhei not playing that card, opting for Memory Deluge instead. So the ability for a control deck to maybe get ahead on cards, not really something that Shuhei can do with his build.
Yeah, the flip side of that, drawing a Memory Deluge would be awesome as well. And that's exactly what happened. I believe I just saw Shuhei put a Memory Deluge to the back, which is just going to be great. You know, the One Ring would draw 1, then 2. Memory Deluge draws 2, then 4. So, I mean, that's just math. We'll get Frank to double check those numbers, but
who better to double check? That's what I say. Here's a Summoner's Pack. That's going to go get Nadu.
Okay.
No surprise there with what the pack is searching up, and of course can be played through counter spells given the Delighted Halfling. So there is that Nadu, and now here's a Pendelhaven, and now passing of the turn. So Daniel just says, I want to get a Nadu on the battlefield right now. Don't have a Shuko or anything else really to go with it, but it's important to have that Winged Wisdom on the battlefield right now.
yeah, that's the big thing, is no Shuko to go with it when there was one available. So it could be a huge, huge blunder there playing that the turn before. Now we're going to see maybe not a Memory Deluge. Maybe I did not see that card.
Looks like
Otherwise, you would have jammed that for sure.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely a spell that you do cast. It may have been a counter spell.
Okay, what's that?
Okay. That's Snapcaster Mage, everybody. That's a Snapcaster Mage recasting the Wrath of the Skies. So that's powerful, to say the least. The pact will be paid for, and we're heading back Shuhei's way. Now, again, the big question here is, Shuhei's done a beautiful job of controlling the game.
Wow.
But can he actually get ahead in the game? And actually, you know, it wasn't a counterspell in hand either. So the blue card that we saw, Corey thought it was a Memory Deluge. I thought it was a counterspell. It was clearly a Snapcaster Mage. And now the One Ring is on the battlefield here for Daniel. So Daniel is again going to be able to keep up with Shuhei. Might actually be getting ahead of Shuhei because of the One Ring.
Yeah, that is absolutely game-breaking. Shuhei would have loved to have one of the 2 invert polarities there to be able to have a very big coin flip for the One Ring. But as it stands now, you gotta love the player that has the One Ring on the battlefield up against a control deck.
And now Shuko onto the battlefield. Looks like we're going to tune up the old band there, a little bit of energy there, tune the narrative. Just going to yield a card and a decent amount of energy. And Mystic Gate is the land that Shuhei did play. And now, again, this is the concern. If you're Shuhei, you did such a great job of kind of controlling everything. But this is a huge reason why Nadu is such a popular deck here this weekend, is because you can control it for a little while, but it does a great job of getting itself back into games. And we are seeing that in full effect right now, Corey.
Yep, absolutely. And Shuhei just never had one of the 8 cards that kind of lets you go through your deck pretty consistently and not run out of steam. And that's one of the 4 Flages or one of the 4 Memory Deluge. So a little bit of an unfortunate draw for Shuhei, and sticking that One Ring at the absolute perfect time from Daniel.
Spell Snare is going to take care of the Orcish Bowmasters, but the ring is going to keep a ring-a-ding-dinging along here. A couple of cards here for Daniel, 3 to be exact. So it's drawn 6 cards, has the powerful artifact, and now you're going to see a Delighted Halfling allow for a Nadu on the battlefield, and Shuko's already out there too. Get the conveyor belt ready, folks. Well, hang on. Hang tight. It's the Solitude to slow things down at least a little bit here for Daniel before this game gets completely out of control.
Yeah, absolutely. You're going to see if we have a Court of Calling for 1 to respond to that, to try to protect it with a Sylvan Safekeeper.
And it looks like the answer is no. Keep in mind, Safekeeper also over in Exile was taken care of a little bit earlier in the game. So the question is, does Daniel have multiple copies of that card or not? Maybe that is the case. We'll get to that a little bit later. For now, Daniel does get that activation with the Shuko, yielding an Overgrown Tomb. And now he's going to take a decent little look at the old graveyard here.
Yeah, and there's that Summoner's Pack kind of hanging out over there that looks like revealed information. So there is just the option to Summoner's Pack to kind of do it again here with this Delighted Halfling. And I don't see why not.
Yeah, hard to argue about going to go and get another Nadu. So here is Nadu via the Summoner's Pack, and it's going to join the battlefield once again. Not via the Delighted Halfling. Looks like no concerns here for Daniel. So there's the Shuko activation. Remember, everything is reset when a new Nado does enter the battlefield. So we'll see the first activation there on the Halfling. It's going to yield a breeding pool. Looks like it may enter the battlefield untapped. Players are going to make sure the life totals are correct because of the Solitude gaining a little bit of life and all of that jazz. And then, of course, there is a 1 ring on the other side, too. So Shuhei and Daniel just making sure they've got the right totals here. Something that we've seen, actually, Corey, a lot this weekend. Players making sure the life totals are correct because there's so many small incremental things taking place.
Definitely. Modern is a format where a lot of fetch lands are happening, damage from the 1 ring, all kinds of stuff like that. And Daniel does have to be a little wary of his life total. It's not just automatically take 2 over and over and over again, because if Shuhei does get another turn, something like a Flage could easily deal 6 damage upstairs by playing it and escaping it.
Well, there's the Nantuko, and let the fun begin, everybody. Endurance is going to be added to the grip there. That's activation 1. This is activation number 2. That will be a Surveil land if memory does serve. And so there's a copy of the 1 ring headed to the graveyard. And Daniel's getting a little bit familiar with the feature match area now, too. Not everyone has access to that little 0/2. I'm going to use the term hoodiki that we have here to make everything work. Yeah, that's the one I'm going to use. Yep. That's what it's going to be right now. So
one thing that's pretty interesting here, Cedric, that actually could come up, I believe Shuhei, I think we saw one of the cards in hand that looked like it wasn't going to be really impactful at all. I think I saw a Spell Snare in hand. And this version that Daniel's playing does try to win the game with Thassa's Oracle. So there might be some scenario where you get to counter that and maybe Shuhei gets another turn. Kind of a stretch here, you know, for sure, but something that could come up here.
Now, I know that she did mention that Shuhei last round lost to Eli Kassis playing Bant Nadu. Of course, we saw Eli earlier this round convert into the top 8, so congratulations once again to him. And, you know, again, I think the difficult thing here for Shuhei has been is just cementing the game away once he does a nice job of getting control of it. May have happened against Eli. I think that was the case when you were watching then. We're seeing it happen now against Daniel. And for you Jeskai Control fans out there, gotta find a way to, once you get control of the game, finish it off.
Yeah, and it just is so difficult to do so when your opponent ends the turn with 7 cards every single time. You know, they can usually find an answer to your 1 or 2 threats you have from the Jeskai Control side. So, you know, it kind of felt like this game was really decided once that 1 ring resolved and then stuck around for a couple of turns. It really seems impossible, and, you know, it just makes these Jeskai Control decks not look as great when these kind of things happen, of course.
Daniel's going to keep it rolling here. Outriders and Delighted Halfling off of that insect activation there with the Shuko. So you see our table judge might be helping out a little bit just to make sure everything is clear and comfy as far as what's on the conveyor belt and what has already gone through it. So that insect's going to go through it now. Next up will be Court of Calling. That's 1. Swamp will be 2. Trigger, of course, the Nantuko. And there's the insect token. So put that one on the Shuko, my friend. There you go. This will be a Grist. Beautiful. So that's 2 off of that one.
Yeah, has the ability to just play a One Ring too if you need to reset that, and that should kind of do it. I was wondering if there was going to be at least one Thoughtseize left in the deck. Being able to Thoughtseize and then Thassa's Oracle here should be just enough to finish this game this turn, as long as Daniel decides to do that.
So there's another Shuko activation on an insect. Trigger the Nantuko because the land entered the battlefield. So there's that insect, and there's a Court of Calling. So done with that one. On to the next one. Thoughtseize can, of course, clear the path, as Corey did mention. Double trigger, Forest trigger, get your insect. And what's that card?
I'm going to guess it's Oracle.
What are you?
Or it was sided out.
Okay, it looks like it may have been sided out. So Orcish Bowmasters, okay. Now, again, remember, you know, the decking of yourself. Well, there's an endurance involved here, and that one's going to be free. Now, this might be a case here where Shuhei might just have no cards in hand as well. If he did have a card in hand, I think we'd see Daniel actually lead out with the Thoughtseize.
Yeah.
And make sure that, you know, this endurance doesn't get countered. But it looks like the endurance is going to resolve, and that means that Daniel has done a beautiful job of doing what this deck does, drawing a bunch of cards, tons of activations. And is there anything that Shuhei can do to actually get back in this thing?
I think so, actually, because the one key thing here is the Sylvan Safekeeper is not available. It's in exile, so there's no way to keep sacking the land and blow everything up from Shuhei. So what it looks like is, yeah, Daniel's going to be able to Thoughtseize and leave Shuhei with just one top deck, but I think, like, if it's a Wrath of the Skies or something, we just kind of start over, and Daniel will have to win the game with the cards in his hand. So I don't think this is going to look like our traditional Nadu win turns. I think this is just going to be some good value and sent back to Shuhei's way.
Okay, so what it sounds like, or at least our best guess is that Daniel's going to do a whole bunch of stuff here with Nadu and Shuko. Just what we saw earlier in the turn and what we're going to continue to see through this turn, and effectively leave Shuhei with one draw step to get yourself out of this situation. Wrath of the Skies is probably the best of the bunch, so that's the thing to kind of work into the equation and keep in mind. But yeah, if there is no Thassa's Oracle and the Sylvan Safekeeper is gone, then okay.
Yeah, we'll see if there's any play that you can do. Like, we're going to see the Thoughtseize probably take a peek at the hand, but if there's any cool play that Daniel can do, like at Shuhei's upkeep to prevent some kind of powerful draws, there's Endurance that can strip away the graveyard at least in case Flage was one of the cards that you're worried about. Going to be interesting to see how Daniel closes this game without one of the combo pieces in exile with the Sylvan Safekeeper.
And again, it is worth mentioning that Daniel doesn't have to keep going. There is a point in which Daniel can stop going and just kind of set up his hand however he would like. And now he's starting to actually look at the cards that are in hand and figure out what to do. Also remember, because the Endurance is evoked, you can stack the triggers appropriately, that the evoke trigger resolves first, which means it's in your graveyard, and then the second trigger shuffling it back into your deck, which we saw Daniel do a little bit earlier in the turn. So Daniel's doing a nice job of protecting himself from kind of any nonsense going wrong, and now Grist is going to enter the battlefield here too. So that one's going to start with a couple of counters, and now that's going to take care of the Solitude.
Yeah, most of the time with any evoke elementals there, you just really want to stack it the other way. We learned that from Grief over and over and over again, but yep, not the case here.
So this is another copy of the One Ring, going to reset the previous ring. Okie dokie, that's just fine. Daniel's at a pretty healthy 12 life, so no real danger of actually losing to the burden counters. So now the question is what is Daniel looking for? That's the big question.
Also, no black mana available, so it looks like no Thoughtseize able to be fired off right now. I mean, Daniel just kind of has to know what's in Shuhei's hand at this point.
I'm fairly confident Shuhei has no cards in hand.
Yeah, okay. It's either that or their lands because Shuhei hasn't been casting anything. Yeah.
So Daniel is going to be discarding down to ideally the perfect 7 cards, and I have to imagine one of them is Endurance. I think that would be the idea. And if you can build the perfect 7-card hand, it's something along the lines of keeping a Nadu, keeping a Shuko, maybe a Nantuko, something like that, just to make sure that if a Wrath of the Skies does come rolling off the top, you're kind of ready to at least attempt to go again. So Daniel is going to keep it going a little bit. I must say... Oh, what do we have here?
I mean, I think there was a Summoner's Pact cast right away at the start of that very, very long turn. It should still be no problem, but I think Daniel did draw a card. I think you're just allowed to just pay, though.
Okay. We will see. We will see. exactly what's going on with this,
Well, that would be a heartbreaker.
to say the least. And we're going to get something's going to come on the screen that tells us who won.
Yes.
Wait for it. Okay.
right,
okay.
there we go.
There you go. I'm not terribly surprised. It is worth noting that Daniel did have the ability to pay the pact if that were the case, because there were plenty of lands in the battlefield and there's a Yavimaya among them.
Yes.
So some of those fetch lands could tap for green mana. Obviously, things got a little bit messy there, but it was pretty conclusive who was winning that game and match. And we see that Daniel does get the job done. 4-color Nadu moving on. Daniel, I think a match away now if winning next round into the top 8.
Yep, absolutely. And Shuhei will not be able to get to that magic 12 number with the last 2 rounds, but still with those 2 draws, if Shuhei were to win those last 2 rounds, still has a pretty solid chance at it.
Okay, perfect. And hang on. It's coming. It's coming in from high above. Corey, can you believe it? More magic.
Yay!
Can you believe it? More magic. And wait, hold on. I'm being told it's
Where are you getting these messages
It's-
from? I'm hearing nothing.
party time.
It's about time.
I know. Sam Pardee, way to be. He's 10-3. You see, it's 5 top finishes for Sam. Already qualified for the World Championships because, of course, he is. He's playing Bant Nadu, and if he didn't get enough Nadu last time, guess what? It's a mirror.
I didn't get enough Nadu, so I'm ready.
Jason Yee, the opponent here for Sam. Bant Nadu, the most played deck, probably the best performing deck on the weekend. Frank will be checking in on that in just a moment. Both these players having wonderful seasons here in 2024. I can't wait to watch a whole bunch more. Game number 1 is where we will begin. And it's the Garden. Okay, so Jason, not everybody's got the Garden this weekend,
Yep.
but Jason does. Okay.
Yeah, Jason has a really, really interesting list. There's a lot of cool, innovative takes in Jason's list.
And there's the Shuko. Oh, yeah. Sam, get a taste. Get a taste of the plant token wearing the Shuko. Sam's going to sacrifice a Windswept Teeth. A Hedge Maze is the weapon of choice. And we'll see a Surveil here in just a moment.
That might be the first plant to ever get in there. That isn't a joke where you look at your opponent and go, huh?
Give you just a little nudge. That card's going to stay on top here for Sam. And there's a Misty and an Nantuko.
Right.
Well, step 1 of the puzzle is complete here for Pardee. We're going to head back over to Yee.
I think Jason did have Nadu all ready to go here, so looks like it's party time for Jason.
It's not a hard game, that's for sure. Well, Shuko, at least 6 activations. Here we go in a moment.
Not a hard game, and probably not a long game here
No.
either, Cedric.
No, I don't think so. Very, very powerful deck is this Bant Nadu deck.
Definitely. Jason does have some interesting cards here. Malevolent Rumble is not a card I would think that we would be seeing in the constructed round. Jason's playing a lot of them.
And one has been revealed. That's a couple of activations, 4 in fact. So here's activation number 5. There's Nantuko, and activation number 6 is Shuko, and there's another land. Okay. So what's the follow-up going to be here for Yee? If there's one at all. There's a Court of Calling amongst those cards, so that's a spell that can be played. There's an Arboreal Grazer. Here's a Court of Calling. There's the Nantuko.
4 more activations to be able to find a land to get the people rolling.
And a Dryad Arbor is actually going to come in, it looks like, off of the... Dryad Arbor is going to come in off of the Arboreal Grazer activation.
Okay.
8 cards. I'm going to shock in all of the...
This looks like the explaining that we win.
So 8 and all that.
We'll let Jason take it away from here.
So shock. It's plenty of lands in there.
Plenty of lands indeed. Fun game number 1, that's for sure, at least for Jason's side of things. It's currently up a game here over Sam Pardee. So we're going to head Sam's way, and it'll be a Yavimaya and a Delighted Halfling. Can Sam actually have a little nonsense this time around? Maybe a very quick kill. Certainly a good start with that land and the Halfling. Now it's a Wall of Roots. The follow-up here is a Delighted Halfling for Pardee. And now a fetch land. That's a Windswept Heath.
So an extremely powerful start here from Sam. Still missing, of course, a couple pieces here, but a very strong start as far as fast mana goes. And that really seems like the name of the game in this mirror. You just want to try to be as fast as possible. There's not a lot of interaction really from either side of the deck. You know, there's some dismembers, some force of vigors, that kind of stuff. But otherwise, it's just two really proactive combo decks going at it.
Hedge Maze here for Jason is going to put the Court of Calling into the graveyard. And now the follow-up will be an Arboreal Grazer trigger. It's an Urza Saga. And now another Misty Rainforest. And the passing of the turn back over to Sam, who will sacrifice a Windswept Heath. Wouldn't be surprised to see a Hedge Maze for Sam here as well for low Surveil action. It'll be a different land, but all the same. Good starts here for both players. Sam getting on the battlefield a little bit better than Jason.
Yeah, and we could easily see Sam kind of do the thing this turn just because you have so many extra creatures laying around that Sam's able to go Nadu and still maybe Court of Calling for the other creature way to win. But as it stands, I think I saw a glimpse of 2 lands and a wall of roots there. That is some bad news, as you got to expect Jason has the ability to have Urza Saga turn into Shuko and find Nadu here at some point.
Well, Sam is going to sacrifice this Windswept Heath, so not a lot going on here for Pardee. There is the Hedge Maze. And so there will be a Surveil trigger. Sam will take a look at that top card. And it's going to head into the graveyard. Shuko, see you later. So what is Sam looking for? Urza Saga's a little slow to this party.
Yep, that is able to find Shuko here in a few turns, but yeah, got to find the namesake card here of Nadu first. So Shuko was not really that important.
In the meantime, Jason's going to create a construct token off the Urza Saga. Chapter 3 will be read here in just a moment as Jason has drawn. Looks like it may be another Urza Saga activation, so another construct. Okay, and now it's time to Shuko it up, perhaps. We'll have to see. No, it's not a guarantee. Actually, it's scrolled by Shuko at least a couple of times here. So, maybe something else on its mind.
Yeah, I think it just doesn't have it right now, as you really wouldn't want to make another construct here. That's kind of like the plan C here in these kind of mirror matches.
Well, have you considered that Shuko makes the constructs pretty big, Corey? Have you thought about that?
I have not.
No? No, have you thought about...
It slipped my mind for some reason.
How about this beatdown? Yeah.
4.
That's right.
Get ya.
You thought the plant token was good. This is a little bit better. Urza Saga up to 2 here for Pardee. Now Wall of Roots was thinking about getting the counter.
So I did see a glimpse of Jason's hand. It has Force of Vigor and Swan Song right now, so it looks like Sam Pardee has to naturally draw Nadu and not a way to chord for it. Summoner's Pact, as that gets dealt with right away. Swan Song card we haven't seen a lot of, that's for sure.
Well, it's been a minute since we've seen that card. That's an oldie but a goodie, to be sure. Looks like the Nantuko has arrived. It's actually hiding underneath a construct token right now, but there's more to come from that very powerful insect generator, I'm sure.
All right, that's a combination right here. Being able to make some extra constructs, I'm here for that.
Okay. Well, I guess actually technically, I was saying it was hiding underneath. That's because it's been bestowed, which is something we actually haven't seen a ton of here this weekend, is the bestowing of that card. It's generally just been hard cast and cranking out some insects, but maybe a little something different on display, as there is a Force of Vigor that's going to destroy a construct and an Urza Saga. So Sam says, I'll activate the Urza Saga in response, which means the construct that's on the battlefield here for Sam is new, and it won't be attacking this particular
Kind of just a shortcut there.
There you go.
Yeah, now Jason has the ability to go end step, fetch both of those lands. You'll get 2 triggers from the Nantuko. Of course, you can only use 1 for the mana, but make a construct. Urza Saga, not the only one that can do it, I guess.
That's true. That is true. A Dryad Arbor there for Sam is not much doing. And again, Sam feels like he's pretty far away from the combo. So you mentioned this fetch land play. You got to sacrifice a Misty, will Jason. And now construct.
Excellent because of the Yavimaya from Sam, able to keep that fetch land around to do some more constructing next turn. This is awesome.
That's a pretty cool way to go about doing it, I will say. I was making jokes about those constructs, but not anymore.
But we just saw quarter calling. So all this cool stuff could just be in vain, as Jason could just go for quarter calling for Nadu.
No. I think we should keep creating these artifacts.
I think so.
So that's just my opinion here in the booth.
I think your opinion might be a little wrong, but we'll see.
Now,
Who's to say?
that's right. There's a Dryad Arbor. That's going to create an insect, it looks like.
I think we're all a little disappointed. I wanted to see some construct beatdowns here.
I wouldn't have hated it. I wouldn't have hated it.
It is really wild how long that took to find that,
Well,
to find it for either player.
Once it was found, Jason was able to turn that frown upside down. It's a win for Jason Yee, and that is one step closer to another top 8.
Jason has been crushing it.
Really has.
Absolutely crushing it.
Yes, really has. So, Corey, I'll tell you
Yeah.
what. Over the course of that round, we saw Nadu, and more Nadu. And I know that players want to see some kind of fun, interesting decks, and we brought you those as much as we could on day number 1, but we're at the back end of this tournament.
Yeah.
The cream rises. Generally, that's the players, but in this time, it's also the players and the deck.
Yeah, absolutely. Nadu went 3-1, and, well, only one because Nadu lost to Nadu there. So, yeah, the bird is rising up and flying above the competition, it seems.
Oh, I'm getting another message from above. Hang on one second here.
From the
Hang on
birds?
1 second. Yep, hang on. No more Nadu. Oh, great. Lovely. Everybody gets a break, including Corey and I. Riley and Monty will be here in just a moment. Before we bring them in, it's Maria and Frank at the news desk.